Good evening, I'm Marivel Tarouk. We begin with breaking news out of Oakville. A man is dead and a woman is in serious condition tonight after a house fire that fire crews say started in a bedroom.
The neighbors noticed smoke coming from the home. When fire crews arrived, they found a working fire in the second floor of the home. They had heavy heat and heavy smoke. When they went in, visibility was zero. So they had a difficult time working the way around on the second floor, but as soon as they entered in that one bedroom, they located both victims.
The fire happened near Kerr and Bartos Streets just after 8:30. Oakville Fire says they transported both people to hospital, but the man later died of his injuries. Crews have now put out the fire. The Ontario Fire Marshal is investigating the cause.
My wife, she wakes me up and she told me there is a problem in the nuclear power plant.
It was really kind of scary at first.
That's a big mistake to just, to send out a bunch of people in the area.
Panic near the Pickering nuclear plant this morning after residents received an emergency alert. Turns out it was all a mistake and some want answers. Stress, fear, then relief, but also frustration. The good news is that there was no nuclear emergency. Now there are questions about how this could have happened. Lorenda Redekop tells us how it all unfolded.
That ear-piercing alert came just before 7:30 a.m., saying it applied to people 10 kilometers from the Pickering nuclear plant, but it was received almost across the province. No abnormal release of radioactivity, it said, but emergency personnel were responding. Then, just after 9 a.m., a new message: no nuclear situation. The alert had been sent in error.
Something as big as that, it's a huge deal. It's really serious. It should have been quicker telling us that it was an error.
The province took responsibility, saying it happened at the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre during regular testing.
And the initial investigation would suggest that as part of a regular trade-off of training that occurs twice a day in emergency measures, an individual did a test of the system and put it on the live path instead of the test path.
The government says it's launched an investigation. The opposition says that investigation needs to be independent.
What exactly happened? Who was responsible? When did they realize that things had gone wrong? Why did it take them so long to send out reassuring messages to people? And the really big question for me as well is how are they going to restore confidence in the emergency notification system?
Even if there had been a problem, the alerts were inconsistent. A colleague got the first alert, but then never got the follow-up more than an hour and a half later, saying it was an error and there was no problem. For me, it was the opposite. I only got the second message. Ted Gretzner says his friend, vacationing in Florida, got an alert. He used to work in communications with the Ontario Power Generation and says any emergency test messages need to be clearly marked.
You always are working on the assumption that somebody outside the group that's supposed to see it will see it, so you would very clearly say this is a drill, this is an exercise, a test, just in case, because you don't want to cause undue panic.
And he says it's crucial that people can trust the alert system. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
A range of reactions from Pickering residents after the alert went out. Some residents fled to safety, while others simply rolled over and went back to bed. But the mayor of Pickering is frustrated, saying the mistake is unacceptable. Angelina King has that part of the story.
Thomas Perez woke up in a panic. There was an emergency at the nuclear power station less than 2 kilometers from his home.
Let's get into the car and get out of here. That was my first reaction.
I was just scared that maybe something would explode or anything and we might not be able to get out.
He woke up the kids and started the car. The alert said there was no risk to public safety, but he didn't want to take any chances. Did you pack any bags or anything?
Nothing. My main concern was our life. Of course that I was scared, but in a situation like this, I don't want anything happen here like Chernobyl,
Before taking off, the Perez family warned their neighbor, Chuck Werzer. He confirmed there was no threat and thought the alert was a mistake all along.
I opened up my window and looked outside. I didn't see any emergency vehicles or anything, so I just assumed it was inaccurate and pretty much went back to bed.
So the Perez family stayed home. After learning the alert was an error, they're more relieved than frustrated.
I prefer a false alarm than a real problem and the government don't give any alarm.
But the mayor of Pickering says some residents did evacuate. He says while he's pleased that there's a full investigation underway to determine what led to the mistake, he's still upset that it happened in the first place.
The length of time that it took for them from the initial alert to retracting the alert is totally unacceptable.
My meter has a function to detect when particle hits.
Feeling skeptical, Varel Patel stopped at the plant to test for radiation.
Checked it. Okay, it's background radiation, almost same. So I feel safe right now. Yeah.
But he still ordered iodide pills, the same ones residents who live within a 10-kilometer radius are provided in case of a nuclear emergency. The mayor says if there was a public emergency, residents would hear sirens. He says that hasn't happened in the 50 years the plant has been operating. Welcome news for a family that lives so close by and is grateful a frantic morning turned into a quiet afternoon. Angelina King, CBC News, Pickering.
Ontario has 3 nuclear power plants, the one in Pickering, one in Kincardine, and one in Clarington, just east of Bowmanville. There's also a nuclear research facility in Chalk River. A nuclear power plant is also located in southern Michigan, about an hour's drive from Amherstburg in southwestern Ontario. For each, the provincial government recommends people who live or work 10 kilometers away always be prepared by having those potassium iodide tablets on hand and reviewing municipal emergency protocols. The province says the chance of a serious accident at a provincial nuclear facility is very low. Well, one of the city's largest gatherings yet today to remember the victims of Ukraine International Flight 752. This one at the University of Toronto, where several of the victims went to school. Ellen Morrow was there.
Dr. Parisa Erbalian, age 42, and Rira Ismailim, age 9.
One after the other, names read out a litany of the lost.
The couple traveled to Iran to get married and celebrate with their family and friends there.
The hundreds there to honor them struggling to contain their grief.
I empathize with how many people are gonna go to sleep hopeless, can't see how their future is gonna be shaped.
Terrible. I don't think I can put it into words.
Armita Sheikhi's cousin, Pedram Jadidi, was visiting his mother in Iran, marking the first anniversary of his father's death. The family now once again plunged into heartbreak.
They're devastated. It's just the way that he died. It makes it all so much worse.
The day after Iran admitted it shot down the plane, sorrow for some is giving way to anger.
The fact that they got shot by the country, by the government, is even more painful. I don't know how to explain my anger.
This protest was held just hours after the vigil, outrage over the loss of life and at the Iranian regime.
We are looking to see the down with this government and see the freedom for the people in Iran.
Relatives of the dead are seeking closure, though it may never come.
Shakiba Faqahati, age 39, and her adorable son, Rastin Moqaddam.
With so many lives ended, so many loved ones left behind, and a nation in mourning. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Toronto.
Across this great country, we stand united together in this time of sorrow.
Coming up, we'll have more for you on memorials taking place across the country today, including this one with the Prime Minister in attendance, and the fallout in Iran after Wednesday's deadly plane crash. That is a bit later in the show. Well, heavy rain in the GTA this weekend led a townhouse complex in Richmond Hill to evacuate as residents were woken up overnight to flooding in their basements.
My daughter ran
upstairs and told me, Mama, there's a flood in our basement.
My brother just woke us up in a panic saying that the basement was flooding. It was maybe like 2 inches when it started, and now it's over a foot in nasty water.
A number of residents on Weldrick Drive East near Yonge and Major Mackenzie were told to leave their homes due to health and safety concerns from the floodwater, leaving residents in limbo. Other regions across the province are also dealing with the aftermath. As much as 80 millimeters of rain was collected in the Thames watershed, causing high water levels that will remain for the next several days. In the London area, you can see here Harris Park completely underwater. The Windsor and Chatham region also finds itself with record-breaking rainfall. The Thames River is overflowing onto a pedestrian walkway as the region gears up for more flooding in the coming days. And here are some residents making the best of things in New Hamburg, just outside the Kitchener-Waterloo region, grabbing their canoes to get around. Certainly making the most of that wet weather outside, Sonia, but now we want to know what's to come after all that rain.
Absolutely. Well, as you said, it's a record-breaking storm. It has passed Toronto. Let's look at the temperatures. Almost 12 degrees in January. We saw lightning on Saturday and Sunday. And talking about the rainfall totals, well, Toronto Airport Pearson saw almost 59, 60 millimeters of that rainfall. And that was just on Saturday. More came on that Sunday, so a total of 67 millimeters fell on that Sunday. What's to come? Well, right now that system is making its way out, which is really great news. The wind gusts are also subsiding. This is also positive. Temperatures, though, start to build. So we actually saw a drop in temperature, 4 degrees within 10 minutes, but things are going back to business as things become a little bit milder over the next couple of days, which is wonderful news. Tonight, though, we have a 40% chance of flurries with also that risk of freezing rain tonight, so it's not necessarily over. That's going to continue into our morning, so your morning commute might be a little slick, so take your time. And then on Tuesday, more of that rain, but again, the temperatures start to build. So 3 degrees going into the next couple of days. And afterwards, I'm going to tell you what we can expect for Sunday and Saturday.
Okay, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks, Sonia.
Thank you.
Police have identified the 25-year-old victim in a fatal shooting that happened at a Scarborough townhouse yesterday morning. Police were called to Military Road near Nielsen and Ellesmere, where they believe suspects shot multiple times into the back door of the unit. When police arrived, they found Paul Anthony D'Souza with multiple gunshot wounds. He was rushed to a hospital where he died. No information has been released on the suspects, but anyone with information is asked to contact police. A bridge near Sherbourne and Bloor is closed to vehicles after a fire broke out there this afternoon. Crews were called to the area at around 4:30 p.m. This video showing smoke coming from underneath the bridge, which was a homeless encampment. The fire was quickly put out and no injuries were reported, but the bridge's structure was exposed to the flames and caused some cracking. Structural engineers have been called to assess the bridge. No word yet on how long this will take. In the meantime, Sherbourne Street remains closed to traffic.
Personnes disparues ou décédées dans le tremblement de terre méritent qu'on honore leur mémoire.
10 years ago today, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck Haiti, killing hundreds of thousands and displacing more than 1 million. We'll look back on that tragedy and see how Canada's Haitian community is remembering it. We'll be right back. In Iran, for the second day in a row, protesters filled the streets, angry in the aftermath of the downed Ukrainian plane. Protesters are calling for the resignation of the country's senior leaders. This is after admission by authorities that it was an Iranian missile which downed the plane, killing all 176 people on board. It followed days of denials. Security forces have been responding to the protests with tear gas and water cannon. There are some reports of live ammunition being used. Hundreds of mourners, including the Prime Minister, gathered at the University of Alberta today to pay tribute to the victims of the Iranian air disaster.
And I want to thank the families and friends of those we lost for being here this afternoon to allow us all to be with you.
Trudeau pledged Canada would pursue justice and accountability, and he told the families Canada stood with them. Canadian consular officials are now in Iran to assist victims' families. In Washington, there are new questions about the president's justification for assassinating General Qasem Soleimani. Today, Donald Trump's point man on Iran had to parse his boss's words carefully to set the record straight. Paul Hunter has those details.
I'm not going to discuss intelligence. What the president said was he believed it probably could have been. He didn't cite intelligence.
Mark Esper, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, today trying to clarify what exactly led to the U.S. strike on senior Iranian General Qasem Soleimani 9 days ago that's led to so much fallout in the Middle East. The U.S. has said Soleimani was planning an imminent attack against American interests, so he had to be killed. On Friday, speaking to Fox News, Donald Trump put it this way.
I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies, but Baghdad certainly would have been the lead. But I think it would have been 4 embassies, could have been military bases, could have been a lot of other things too. But it was imminent, and then all of a sudden, he was gone.
Critics, among them U.S. lawmakers, including at least one Republican, want details. And as tensions over all of it continue to simmer in Iran, Esper was today pressed on Trump's comments and whether indeed there was tangible intelligence of a specific threat against 4 U.S. embassies.
Well, the president didn't say there was a tangible, he didn't cite a specific piece of evidence. What he said is he believed.
Are you saying there wasn't one?
I didn't see one with regard to 4 embassies.
The farthest Esper seemed willing to go was that, having seen whatever the president saw, he believes attacks were likely.
Trump, meanwhile, today turned his attention to those latest protests in Iran over the shooting down of that jetliner, tweeting a warning to the Iranian leadership. "Do not kill your protesters," he wrote. The USA is watching. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
The devastation caused by Australia's bushfires includes wiping out the food supply for wildlife. And now dramatic steps are underway to try to help. An aerial food drop has spread more than 2 tons of carrots and sweet potatoes across a pair of national parks. Wallabies are one of the targets. They typically survive bushfires, but vegetation they depend on has turned to ash. Officials put the number of animals affected or killed at 800 million. 10 years ago today, Haiti was struck by a devastating earthquake. In barely half a minute, the island was hit by a tremor that would leave 200,000 dead and millions injured and homeless. In Montreal, the disaster is being remembered through art and tales of heartbreak. Sarah Levitt has more.
We met on the morning not knowing that it was the last time.
Franz Voltaire often replays January 12, 2010 in his mind. In the morning, he met up with his cousin Georges Anglade in Port-au-Prince. At 3:55, his flight back to Montreal took off. An hour later, devastation. The 7.0 magnitude earthquake caused immense damage. An estimated 230,000 people were killed, more than 1 million were displaced, all from a quake which lasted less than 30 seconds.
I remember a German guy who told me that, he said, I was in Dresden during the Second World War when the Allies had this bombardment. It takes 1 week maybe to have the same destruction you have in a few seconds.
Almost 4,500 Haitian refugees settled in Quebec following the earthquake. Montreal has the largest population of Haitians in Canada. This weekend, La Maison d'Haïti wanted to recognize that and hold a commemoration of the loss a decade ago.
Le thème de cette année, c'est Haïti là. Haïti est encore là.
Jean-Bonald Golinsky-Fatal calls Haiti home. The day of the earthquake, he was out in the country and far from the devastation.
Le lendemain, j'ai dû sortir. C'est à ce moment que j'ai cru comprendre la gravité de la situation. C'était extrêmement grave.
People heard from different Haitian speakers, took part in workshops, and Haitian artists displayed their works. It may be 10 years ago, but the impact of what happened on January 12, 2010 still affects many.
Les personnes disparues ou décédées dans le tremblement de terre méritent qu'on honore leur mémoire.
Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
You are looking live at Toronto tonight. Coming up, the weather forecast for the start of your week. Stay with us. And Sonia's back with a look at your forecast. So we're looking at a bit of a warm up, a little bit.
a little bit of a warm up for sure. Tonight, though, we are going to see some of that flurry activity, possibly 40% chance, and also that freezing rain risk. So that's going to be tonight going into tomorrow. So please be careful. Sidewalks might be slick. Roads, especially if they're untreated, might be slick. But let's take a look at that record-breaking storm that took over Ontario yesterday. At Pearson, 59 millimeters of rain fell. And that was just on Saturday. That's not including Sunday. Sunday, almost 70 millimeters of rain fell in Toronto. So we saw a lot of flooding. The DVP was shut down all the way down to the Gardner. Now, this system is making its way through, although we are going to see some of that snowfall activity tonight going into tomorrow. So give yourself some extra time tomorrow. Yes, the wind gusts are winding down, but this morning we saw 56-kilometer-per-hour winds recorded at Pearson Airport. But yes, things are dying down, which is fantastic news. The temperatures, they are starting to build back up to normal, mild at least, going into tomorrow and Tuesday. However, let's take a closer look at the temperatures tomorrow morning. Well, from Windsor all the way through to Toronto, again, that freezing rain risk tonight going into tomorrow. Please be careful with that. But this is our next few days. It starts to warm back up. Toronto 3, Hamilton again 6 degrees, not so bad. But then we do have another system that makes its way through. So take a look at that. So pretty mild temperatures going into the weekend, but then by Saturday we have another storm. Potentially some of that snow that's going to impact us on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, thanks for that, Sonia.
Thank you.
And that is our show for you tonight. We're going to leave you with shots of the secret women's hockey showcase at the Mattamy Centre today. A series of games featuring more than 100 female Olympians. The event is part of the Dream Gap Tour, raising awareness of women's hockey. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. Have a great night, everyone.